in the forest. Momentarily, Peter Marks is going to be first talking to us about the plant communities of this area, but also then leading us on a hike. I'm delighted that Peter has agreed to join us today. And I have never been on one of Peter's field trips, which I was in and out of Cornell over the years, and his Friday afternoon field trips were renowned for educating folks about the natural world, particularly in Tompkins County, the Cayuga Lake Basin. In addition to being recently emeritus professor of ecology and systematics at Cornell, he also serves on the Land Trust Preserve Management Committee and is a board member of the Nature Conservancy Central and Western New York chapter. So, Peter, thanks for joining us. I look forward to learning.
But I do want to make you aware of two sort of major kinds of forest, both of which are common in this region. And to my way of thinking, when you go out in the woods, you've got to know which kind of forest you're in and why, and how you recognize these two different types. Percent of the county in forest at each of these dates. 1790, essentially 100%, 1900, about 19%, and today, we don't have an exact figure today, but it's at least 55, it's probably slightly more than 55%. So one thing jumps out at us right away from these numbers. That's a lot of change in the amount of forest we have in 200 or so years, not all that much time in some respects. But these numbers, if we look at them a little bit more carefully, they tell us something really important about the forest that is in our area. Almost all of the original forest has been cleared for farming at some point in the distant past. And so no more than about 19% of the land area in Tompkins County is in forest that has always been forest. And we have a name for that. We call it one name. It goes by more than one, but the name that I tend to like because it's scientifically correct and simple is primary forest. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. Notice the difference between these two numbers. We have a lot more than 19% forest today, 55 or so, which means that most of the forest that we have today, the difference between 55 and 19, is some other kind of forest. It's a kind of forest growing on land that was once farmed. So something like 36% of the area in forest today is secondary, or what a synonym would be, and a slightly more descriptive word would be post-agricultural forest. That is literally forest growing on land that was once farmed. Now, one point that's important, primary does not in any sense mean old growth or virgin forest. Primary only means forest land that has always been in forest. It has almost all, with only one or two minor exceptions. They're exquisite and important exceptions. We do have a little bit of old growth, but way over 99% of the 19% is forest that has been logged, mostly more than once. In the early parts of the 20th century, much of this forest had farm animals running in it, pigs and cows, especially if there was oak in the overstory. There were acorns to be eaten on the ground, and farmers ran animals in a lot of the woods, and those animals had effects on the forest of various sorts. So my point is that this primary forest is land that's been managed. Some of it's been beaten up pretty badly, but it is still primary forest, and there are characteristics of primary forest that we can still see in most examples of this particular kind of forest. So this lumpy soil versus level, that's a really good character. Big trees with the qualifications that I mentioned. The form of the tree is very helpful, and paying attention to the species can also be helpful as well.
I don't know. Is it a mound, you think? The rock popped up?
Okay, what do you think?
Another mound right over there too.
I don't know. It's pretty lumpy.
Pretty lumpy.
Pretty lumpy. A lot of lumpy.
Yeah, it's primary.
All right.
And look at right behind Andy there. There's you can even see the whole story here. You see, this is the remnant. This is all that's left.
Oh.
There's the pit. Here's the mound. It tipped this way, and you see this once would have been more like this, and the trunk would have run way out there. The trunk is long gone. So what this is, look just. You know, there's not much growing on the ground, so we can see the surface pretty well. And just look how undulating it is.
Right.
Definitely primary. Even if we, you know, and we haven't said anything about the trees, you don't need to look at the trees when it's this obvious on the ground. Primary.
Cool.
Christmas fern is a good indicator of primary forest. So if you happen to know that, you see all of it. There's a lot of it here. Tree size gets smaller, and ground layer is very different. You notice that there aren't Christmas ferns, for example.
So, boundary between primary, the lumpy forest with Christmas ferns, and secondary with a flat forest and no Christmas ferns.